Now, nothing quite tells the world that you've arrived in life like a big luxury SUV. Not any of that compact entry-level stuff. Oh no. I mean a big full-size 5-seater with a 6-cylinder engine and a price north of 1 crore rupees. Something like a Mercedes GLE or a BMW X5. But what if you want to tell the world you've arrived a little bit further? Well, you could spend a few more lakhs and get one of the mammoth 7-seaters. Or you could go the other way and get a sleek coupe SUV, really sporty stuff. You could even get a luxury MPV these days. Or even a luxury EV if you're into that sort of thing. But what if you want to stick with the formula of a big 5-seat SUV with a 6-cylinder engine? Well then, there are these two. For roughly 30 lakh rupees more than an X5 or a GLE, both fabulous cars by the way, you unlock access to these two, the Range Rover Sport and the Porsche Cayenne. Now, these both do things a little bit differently from one another and they both have a very posh badge on their nose. But is that enough? What more do these two SUVs bring to the table? That's what we're here to find out, and I'm going to tell you at the end if it's really worth picking these over the established competition. And let's face it, 30 lakhs is not a small amount of money any way you slice it. So these two have to really go beyond the call of duty to win you over. They also have to show other people that you've spent more money. So do they achieve that? Well, we've come a long way since the original 2002 Cayenne, where they awkwardly tried to fit the face of a 911 on the body of an SUV. No, that's ancient history. This latest version looks a lot more cohesive and a lot sleeker if you ask me. There are still some very Porsche details like in the headlamps and in the roof line and a bit of the tail lamps too. And really that's what will set this car apart out on the road. It's a very if you know sort of SUV, because frankly, on its own, if you don't know, it looks quite unassuming and a little bit understated. Porsche designs have always been understated, and really, if you can identify this as a Porsche Cayenne, that's what will let people know that this is something special. The Range Rover, on the other hand, it also is a big departure from Range Rovers of old. Yeah, the previous Range Rover Sports were boxy and square looking, much like the bigger Range Rover, the senior Range Rover. And the Sport, well, this one tries to carve its own niche. It looks a lot sleeker, a bit more like the Velar, but there is no shortage of drama. It's got beautiful detailing. It looks big, monolithic, and really in your face. In the stakes of outright drama and road presence, I think the Range Rover Sport takes it. What do you think? Let us know down in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And as always, I hope you're subscribed to the Autocar India channel. Now, without further ado, let's get these SUVs back on the road, because things only get more different as we go along. Well, the first thing you notice about the Range Rover Sport is that, well, it's quite a climb to get inside. If you really want to know why, that's because this car is built on the MLA Flex architecture, the new architecture that accommodates not only petrol and hybrid powertrains, but yes, also EVs. So they've left room down there for the batteries. In case you're wondering, yes, you normally get a fold-out step to help you climb in, but the folks at JLR's PR team actually removed it from this car because, and I quote, "it would not look nice on camera." Once you're in place though, you really start to appreciate the benefits of sitting so high up. Even when the seat is pushed to its lowest, it is still lording over everybody else. It's a very commanding driving position. You have this lovely flat wide bonnet out in front of you. It feels grand, it feels majestic. It is a very wide car, but you get used to it pretty soon. Just be a little careful in tighter lanes. Then you're wowed by the luxury, because this is just a beautifully designed cabin. It looks phenomenal. Amazing materials, this lovely dark chrome that glistens with a little bronze tinge. It looks very rich. The leather is nice and soft, this two-tone setup here. And everything just looks so clean and minimalist and well designed. I'll get back to that in a moment. Even the decision to use a high quality fabric over here for the speaker grills and the door pads, it just works so well. It's new age luxury and they've done it to perfection. Also, if you're interested in this sort of thing, it's also incredibly practical. I mean, this wide center console, it really hides a lot of storage. There's a cubby hole there with a wireless charger, a very deep cubby hole here with a sliding recess with cup holders that move out of the way when you don't need them, and a cooled bin underneath this armrest here. Then of course there are massive door pockets and a dual glove box. Perhaps not the most practical solution, but it is kind of cool and it does hold enough. But yes, back to that minimalism, and as always, though it looks great, it does come at a price, and that price is usability. JLR pioneered the context sensitive dials for AC and other control. Do you remember those? Well, they're gone now and everything has been pushed into the touchscreen. It's a beautiful touchscreen. The Pivi Pro infotainment, absolutely love it. And that carries over to the digital dials as well, which look really nice and are very informative. It's just that using this on the move is a nightmare. Simple thing. On either side of the screen are two sets of controls that are supposed to be quick access, easy sliders. The temperature for either side, and on this side there's the drive modes, and that side the volume. And while you're driving, you have to make sure you tap the right one just to change the modes, and then you have to look at the screen to make sure you're in the right. It's a lot of work. Seriously, car makers, you need to get over this very quickly. But these are all nitpicks in what is otherwise a tremendous looking and feeling cabin. The seats of the Range Rover Sport are incredibly soft and comfy. They've got a wide array of adjustments, although some of it has to be done through the touchscreen. Again, a shame. But it's very easy to get comfy in these things, and they are heated and cooled as well. Now, when talking features, there's a very important distinction to point out here, and that's that this Range Rover Sport is now locally assembled. Now, this often means that they go for a very bare bones spec to get the price just right, but this time they haven't. I mean, this is a Range Rover Sport. You're dropping $1.5 crore on an SUV like this. It's got to feel like it has everything, and really, it kind of does. JLR recently moved the Sport from the SE trim to the higher spec HSE, and for that you get 22-way adjustable front seats that are not just heated and cooled but massaging too. Soft closed doors, a heads-up display, ADAS, rear entertainment system, and a Meridian audio system, among a whole lot else. All things considered, I will say that in terms of road presence and an all-round luxury feel, this Range Rover Sport does go a step further than the established big luxury 5-seat SUVs. So, what about the Porsche then? No issues climbing into the Cayenne like you have in the Range Rover. It's no sports car, but well, even at its medium height on the air suspension, it's a pretty easy step into the cabin. And quite contrary to the experience in the Range Rover, in this SUV you just want to lower your seat down immediately for the sportiest possible driving position. You get those 911-like haunches over the headlamps that help you place the bonnet better. And immediately, again, very much unlike the Range Rover, this car just shrinks around you. They're not too far off in width from one another, both these cars, but the Cayenne feels like an altogether smaller SUV from behind the wheel. The interior layout of the Cayenne, well, it's sporty, but it's quite functional and quite understated. Typically German, typically Porsche. It's not a particularly exciting interior design in my opinion. You get this very horizontal dashboard. You can have an optional screen on the passenger side, but I don't recommend it. And your big touchscreen in the center, and now a set of full digital dials in front of the driver. Storage wise, it's not quite as much as what you get in the Range Rover, but it's still a pretty decent amount. But I like the attention to detail when it comes to functionality in this cabin. These grab handles, iconic for the Cayenne, are angled slightly outwards towards the driver or passenger, making them really easy to hold on to for whatever reason you might need to. The steering wheel is compact and has all the essential driving functions right here on the steering wheel, all with physical hard buttons. That includes the drive mode selector, which is a rotary dial, a push for a little bit of boost if you want that, as well as most of your essential controls to operate the digital dials in front of you. But best of all, physical controls for the AC as well as a few other functions. There are some touch buttons too, but at least they're hard coded and in the place that you will always remember them. That's the way to do it. The digital dials too, they're very clean, they're very easy to read, they're laid out in actual round dials. You can change from a number of different screens, or just the navigation, or a minimalist blank display with just the essentials. All very well thought out. On the features front, well, that honestly depends on how much more you're willing to spend in a Cayenne, because a whole lot of stuff is optional. There is more standard equipment this time around, so it's not completely bare bones like it used to be a few generations ago, but it still requires some spending in the options list. The sunroof, for example, is optional, and you'll have to spend more still for the likes of seat ventilation. Even this two-tone interior is an optional extra, otherwise it's just black. Back to the Range Rover though, because under the hood is something quite interesting. Now the Range Rover Sport, the Indian-made version at least, comes with two 6-cylinder engines. You can have it with a petrol, but really this diesel is ideally suited to it. Again, big, luxurious cruiser. 700 Newton meters of torque, 350 horsepower. It swells up, it moves this massive car so effortlessly. And amazingly, it actually sounds really good. It's refined enough when you need it to be, but when you stretch it out a little bit, it's got this lovely mechanical thrash. Dare I say it, it sounds better than the petrol V6 in the Cayenne. In case you're wondering, in our performance test, the Range Rover Sport diesel got from 0 to 100 kph in 6.4 seconds. Not bad for a 2.3-ton diesel SUV. Then there's the 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox. It's in no hurry. You can put it into its sport mode, but honestly, you kind of don't want to. Even here, it's very relaxed. It shifts a little bit quicker. Just put it back into normal mode. It's the best way to drive this car. That's not the case with the Cayenne. Now, if you want to talk driving, that's where the Cayenne really comes into its own. Now, this price might only get you the base V6 petrol engine, but even this feels truly alive in a way that most other luxury SUV engines just don't. At 353 horsepower and 500 Newton meters, it's one of the more potent iterations of this VW Group 3-litre turbocharged V6. And boy does it make that known when you slam your foot down. You can really feel every step as you move up and down this dial, from normal to sport and to sport plus. They all feel distinct from one another, and that affects every aspect of the way this car drives. I mean, at its core, this ZF 8-speed automatic gearbox is the same one used in the Range Rover Sport. But drive them back to back, and I promise you, you won't be able to tell. It's just so much more eager, more responsive, and raring to go. And the best part is, if you leave it in normal mode and drive it around town, it doesn't feel jerky. Put it into Sport Plus though, and everything just wakes up. This really doesn't feel like a base model car in the slightest. The Cayenne is quicker to 100 kph, but credit to the Range Rover, there's less than a second's gap between them. And it's a similar story in rolling acceleration for overtaking. But what happens when you show them a set of corners? Now here's one thing you got to know right off the bat. The Range Rover Sport is sport mostly in name, and that's really been the case with all Range Rover Sports that came before it. You get the sense immediately that this is a nice, big, cushy luxury SUV and not a corner carving maniac. You feel it in the steering that's nice and light and easy to twirl. You feel it also in the high seating position, and you also feel it in the nice softly sprung air suspension, which I'll get to in a little bit. There's a lot of mass to work with, and as such the Range Rover does roll around a bit, so you'll want to take it easy around corners. And once again, that's not the case with the Porsche. You can tell that it's hunkered down on its air suspension, which again I'll get to in a bit. The steering response is just so razor sharp, and the way you can tuck this thing into a corner, my god. Driving them back to back, it really was a case of David versus Goliath, because the Range Rover's torquier engine would rocket it straight ahead in a straight line, but the sight of the first corner and this thing would just dart in and close the gap. The other thing you got to remember is that this car is a whole lot lighter than the Range Rover Sport, over 200 kgs lighter, and that pays dividends not just in the acceleration but in the handling too. The Range Rover may have more torque, but it has a whole lot more to move as well, and that really shows, especially in the corners. If you have even the slightest interest in driving yourself, it just has to be this one. It doesn't sound quite as good as the straight 6 in the Range Rover, but I don't care, because this is a far more exciting driving experience. Even if you're not carving up a mountain road like I am right now, the Cayenne's solid performance-oriented engineering pays dividends. Out on the highway at triple-digit speeds, this thing just feels rock solid in a way that even the Range Rover Sport does not. The Cayenne seats are a reflection of its sporty nature. They aren't quite as plush as the ones in the Range Rover, but they hold you tight and hug you in all the right places. And speaking of the seats, it's time we hopped into the back. And well, to be honest, it's not that bad. Now you might be thinking, oh, this is a Porsche, it's a sports SUV, the back seat needs to be paid no attention, but no. The Cayenne is now playing in luxury SUV territory, and the back seat, especially here in India, is incredibly important. And like I said, I mean, the fundamentals are right. It's plenty of knee room, as you can see, even headroom is really rather good. This big panoramic sunroof, I might go as far as saying it's slightly bigger than the one in the Range Rover, lets in a lot of good light, and you even get powered sun blinds. Another nice touch I like is that these angular grab handles back here match the ones in the front. That's a pretty cool touch, and it's very, very Porsche Cayenne. And that Bose sound system, again, unfortunately an option, but it sounds a whole lot better than the Meridian one in the Range Rover, if you ask me. It's not all bare bones back here either. I mean, 4-zone climate control is standard on the Cayenne. You get AC vents there, as well as a pair of Type-C ports and a 12-volt socket to charge your devices. And get this, the seat actually slides back and forth. Guessing the only real benefit is to free up more luggage room if you need it. And there's even a bit of recline or lack thereof that lets you put the seat exactly how you want it. I suppose where it does fall short is the seat itself in terms of outright comfort. I mean, it's fine for two on the outside because they're very, very well contoured, these seats. They hug you in place just like the ones in the front, and that means life for a middle passenger isn't quite as good. They're also quite firmly cushioned, and you're sat quite low to the ground, and there's more of a pronounced hump in the center in this car than in the Range Rover, and I suppose that's what marks it down in the back seat stakes. There is noticeable wind and road noise and some mechanical noises from the suspension and the like inside the cabin, and that's not a nice experience. If you're on an ultimately smooth road like the freeway, you're great, but on our typically bumpy back roads, it doesn't feel so good. And then there's the ride. It has its advantages and its disadvantages. Some like it, some don't. It's that typically German firm ride that makes it incredibly stable at high speeds and superb in the corners, as we've seen already. But when you just want to sit back and relax, and again over some bumpy roads, perhaps the firmness will get to you after a little while. Frankly, if you told somebody that this car had air suspension, they wouldn't believe you, because it's not your typical air suspension that's usually soft and wallowy like the Range Rover. No. This is sports air suspension and it's set up quite firm to give the Cayenne its sporty edge. But it does come with all the benefits of air suspension. That's off-road height if you need it, and lower height for sport mode and to gain easier access to the cabin. And yes, I did mention off-road height. This car does actually come with four-wheel drive and off-road drive modes built into it. So yeah, it can take a little bit of the rough stuff, but I wouldn't push it, especially on the Pirelli P0 sports tires that it comes fitted with. Now, as you might have guessed, the Range Rover does this a whole lot better. It's had decades and decades of off-roading pedigree built into it. And yeah, though we didn't get to put it to a test, I suppose if you took the two of them off-roading, you'd dare to venture a lot further in that car than you would in this. It's also pretty clear what else the Range Rover does better. Oh, sorry, didn't hear you there. Yes, the Range Rover Sport comes with these lovely noise-cancelling wireless headphones that are paired to the rear entertainment system. It's all part of the package. Frankly, it's not a very useful rear entertainment system because it only operates via HDMI. But if nothing else, these do really a great job of shutting the world out if that's what you need. But yeah, back to the cabin of the Range Rover Sport on the whole, the rear cabin, and well, it mirrors what we've seen at the front in that it's just a beautiful place to be. The floor is almost flat because the transmission tunnel is part of that floor, it's underneath, so it doesn't intrude too much into the cabin. And really, it's just the overall experience back here that just feels a little bit plusher and richer than what you get in the Cayenne and in a lot of other SUVs of this size or so. Now there are window blinds here. They're not powered, they're manual, but they get the job done. Once again, there is dual zone climate control for the rear, a separate two zones that you operate via those knobs over there that should have also been at the front. And there's several ports. There's USB Type-C's, a 12-volt socket, and even a full-on plug for you to plug your laptop in. And as I mentioned before, HDMI ports for media devices. I also like small details and the fact they've put the AC vents up here. There are some down there as well, but they blow neatly onto your face and that keeps your head cool after a hot day at the office. What really sells it though is the seat itself. It is just so plush. It's generously cushioned. It's better for three, it's wider, it's got flatter cushioning in the middle too, and even the backrest doesn't intrude too much for a middle passenger. Speaking of the backrest, it is power adjusted and it goes all the way down there. It's quite an aggressive power adjust if you ask me, but it too can be reclined a whole lot further behind than you might think. This is a great place to be. Actually, objectively, I think it might have a little less knee room than the Cayenne, but you forget all that just for the level of comfort and luxury you have back here. What also works in the Range Rover's favor is that whether or not you use those wireless headphones, the insulation is much better in the back of this cabin. It shuts out a whole lot more of the outside world. Speaking of isolation, the air suspension in the Range Rover Sport is set up like you expect air suspension to be. It's soft, it's cushy, and it's plush. And I suppose it tightens up a little bit when you put it into dynamic mode, and that's what you need to prevent it from being too floaty. Yes, some might find the movement a bit too much, especially going over bumps at low speeds. You get rocked around a little bit, but at least it does deliver that proper luxury ride quality that you'd expect from an SUV in this price bracket. I will say though that it does suffer a bit from its large wheels and tires. Yes, these 22-inch wheels which are standard, they look great, but go over some bumps and you can tell that perhaps smaller wheels would have worked better, as you can really feel them inside the cabin. When it comes to ride quality, I think both these cars score well at certain things, but ultimately it's the Range Rover that does a better job of making you feel like you're in a luxury car. So I think it's made clear pretty early on that these two cars deviate off onto their own separate paths. Now, if you're sat in the back like I just was, this is the one for you. And if you prefer sitting in the front seat of your big 5-seat SUV, it's got to be the Cayenne. That is every bit the driver's car, and this is a little better for the chauffeur driven. But that's not all. They both offer premium experiences. The only difference is that now that the Range Rover Sport is locally assembled, it's far better value. I never thought I'd say that of a Range Rover, but here we are. For your 1.45 crore rupees, you get it all, everything you see on this fully loaded car. Whereas the Cayenne at 1.48 crore rupees is only the start. You have to spec it up from there. And in fact, this particular car is spec'd up to 1.78 crore rupees. Ultimately, it comes down to what you'd prefer in your big SUV. So let us know down in the comments which one you'd choose, the better all-rounder or the driver-focused sports SUV. Me, personally, I like to drive. So you know which one I'm going home with.